briefly on how to write your welding consumable list. A few beginners and people who are about to start their businesses and about to dive into the mobile welding field or dive into the construction field and just want to know a couple tips on how you should write out the list, how you should know what you need and what not to buy. I have witnessed a lot of people dive into welding and different parts of the business. And one thing I noticed that they'll even purchase the wrong thing, or they'll spend too much money, or they'll try to go the cheap way out, or they don't realize the full cost of everything when they get started, and that fails their business as well. Because if you don't put the numbers together from the jump, then it's going to be hard for you to fully understand. You just can't have, oh, I want to start this. And sometimes you can have a great idea, fam, a great idea. But if you don't write everything out and you don't understand everything fully, it's going to be hard for you to make it make sense. So, this Rising family, I just wanted to talk to you briefly about how to write out your list. So, it all depends on what you are trying to do. So, we're going to look at this from a few different standpoints. We're going to look at this from a individual standpoint. We're going to look at this from a business standpoint, and we're going to look at this from a product standpoint if you are selling products in your welding. So, on a individual standpoint, if you are trying to build up some gear, and say you're trying to dive into the welding field and you want to have your own personal equipment. Now, there's many different welding opportunities where you can have your 220, 110, 480 unit, and you can go in and you can do a lot of different welds when it comes to factories and plants and things like that. You can plug in and you can actually get a good price for still using your unit without having a gas, burning unit, inside of certain facilities. So it's a plus to be able to have that. And if that's you trying to do that, and I started off doing things like that as well. I would recommend you doing some homework on what type of welder that you want to buy, because your welder is going to be one of your um, top investments when it comes to building your independence. So, I wouldn't recommend buying new unless you got the money. That's no problem. But there's a lot of used equipment out there you can make money with. And then later you can go back and you can start purchasing the new things as you scale your business. But you don't have to break the bank getting started. But I would see, what some of the good welders out there, that's been, I would say, seasoned and have been tested, already been, reliable units. So, in my personal opinion, I like going with Lincoln units, Miller units, Hobart units, ESOL units. Those are some of the units that I have purchased and I have did on mobile welding jobs inside, being an individual using his talent in a piece of machinery. Those, you can be able to win on. And when it comes to traveling, I would say you want to at least spend, I would say, depends on the deal, anywhere from, let's say, on the low end, $250, on the high end, $1,500. You know what I mean? So it depends if you're purchasing it new or used. Now, even $1,500 can be a used price for a good piece of machinery. So it all depends on what you're trying to get, but you need to write that down. So the first thing you need to write down is the price of your welding unit. So that need to be the first price you got up there, or just welding unit. You want to find out. So at least put that down there and start accumulating you some prices. And then you want to start figuring out, okay, if you're going to be doing, what process you're going to be doing, where you're going to be needing some wire, are you going to be needing stick, or are you going to be needing some stick rods and some electrodes. So if you're going to be doing some TIG welding, or you're doing some MIG or flux core welding inside, I mean, what type of process are you doing with your plug and go unit? You know what I mean? So once you figure out that part of it, then you want to start saying, okay, in we're going to project things for the first month. How much will I need to for my first month of operation. So you want to figure out how much gas, if it takes you one bottle of gas to do the whole thing, how much wire can you get off with a couple spools, and if so, what's that pricing? Can you get off with just buying one big thing of rods, or do you need two? Depends on how much stick welding you do. But those are some of the things you need to write down as far as consumables, so you can get an idea, and then start calling around and pricing. Or unless you get now, a lot of these things when it comes to consumables, if you don't need them ASAP, I would recommend, if you don't have a personal account somewhere at a good local welding supply store, I would recommend ordering, because you can find a lot of local and online vendors that will, if you come up with your list, they will send you everything to your front door if you can wait, and you can get a good price at it, buying a bulk like that. So that's just an idea. And then, you want to look at, things like type of equipment, what type of hood you're going to need. Are you doing, where you need a hard hat in a welder, where you just need a regular welding hood? Because those are things you need to consider when you're thinking about going inside and outside. So if you're a fabricator and you're building things inside, you probably all you need is a regular hood. But if you're doing construction, and then you might be welding something where maybe something hanging over your head or something, you might need to have a hard hat on. So you need to consider having a welding hood with a hard hat, or a welding hood, a regular welding hood, and then price both. So that way you can kind of realistically know some of these numbers. And then, other equipment you might need, like a grinder. I would recommend, when you're getting started, fam, like I say, all of these things you can buy used. You don't have to buy these things new. I had bought all of these things used, and only certain things I bought new when I had the capital to buy it getting started. Some will recommend buying a new grinder. If you can't afford it, you can still buy a used one, and that can still. I got a few used grinders that last me a while, so you don't have to break the bank. But if you're getting one, I would recommend, you got three different sizes. Depends on what you're doing. I would recommend at least having two different sizes, maybe the small one and the middle one, or the middle one and the big one if you're in the field. It just depends on what you're doing until you can actually start getting all three. But if you can get two, I would recommend to get two. If you can only get one, I try to get that one in the middle, that middle size. Normally, that one tends to be pretty good. You got many different brands. I got a DeWalt. You got pretty different amps. I try to get one with a lot of amps on it. That way you can really get on it and use it without burning it up. They got the brushless ones now, so it depends on what you're trying to use and what type of equipment. But most definitely you're gonna need a grinder, so you want to write that down. You want to write down your grinding consumables. So if you're using grinding wheels, uh, wire wheels, buffing wheels, cutting wheels, you want to write those down as well, so you can have a realistic approach on, okay, I'm gonna need this and this because I'm gonna be doing some fabrication. Now I will say this: if you're gonna be doing some stainless and steel, I would buy two different kits. That way I use my stainless stuff, my brushes and all that, wire wheels, everything right on stainless, just like I have one for steel. You don't want to mix those, especially when you're welding on them. That's just a tip I would give you. But I would most definitely figure out what you need. And if you're going to be doing some TIGging, make sure you got, some cups, some electrodes, just different little deals to make your job easier. Tools always make the job easier, family. So if you got the right tools, you don't have to work as hard. You can work smart. And I like to work smart and not hard. So I would rather have the right tools to get the job done faster, so we can go in and enjoy time. You know what I mean? I used to always tell people when I was doing the traveling work, hey man, if we can go in here and we can knock this job out in 6 hours or 5 hours, and it was scheduled to get it knocked out in 8, I'm still gonna pay you for the 8. If we can get the same job done in 5 or 6 hours, then we finna go enjoy ourselves. You know what I mean? Because to me, those type of incentives when you're working in the construction, it just boosts good work ethics. And then a lot of times, you can knock them out. Some things will take that time, or it might take an hour or two longer if you run into a problem. So those are just some things to think about. Another thing I would say, I would make sure you get you some different power supplies, some different cords. Depends on, like I say, if you're doing inside, make sure you got you enough cords and for your 220, 480, or 110 power supply cords. I like one thing I do love about technology now. You can buy a lot of cordless equipment. So I love the cordless equipment. I got a set of cordless equipment, but certain things you do need a cord on. So I would just recommend, as you growing, having a standard of both on certain things. That way, if you get caught in a bind, you can still knock the project out. That's what I learned. You know, I heard a man say, I'd rather have two arms than one. You know what I mean? I understand it now. So if I can have a grinder with a battery and one without, I have both of them just in case the situation. So that's just something to put down. A few other things that you're gonna need, depends on what you're doing. You're gonna need some clamps. You'll need certain hammers and certain things like that. So put down your tools as far as um, your levels, your squares, your tri squares, your speed squares, things like that, because those tools are going to help you, your levelers, different things are going to help you get the process done faster. Salute, salute. Thanks for checking in. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So the next thing I would say is think about your wire. Depends on what you're doing. They got different wire prices, so I would write all of those down. Depending on if you need point 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 0.25, 0.35, 0.30, 0.45. You know what I mean? And they do have different pounds. You have the 10-pound spools, 33 and 44. Depends on what machine you have. So keep that in mind when you're buying your wire. If you got a bigger machine, I would recommend buying a bigger spool because it will last longer. But those are ways to understand the pricing, because each one is going to be priced different. So your 10-pound spool is most definitely going to be different than a 33 and a 44. So keep that in mind. If you're using stainless or steel or both or just one, make sure you write that down, because you want to know a price on what your stainless wire, if it's going to be a 332nd or if it's going to be a 16 wire. You want to know what those prices is. So those are some ideas to write down. If you're using stick rods, you want to know if you're using 7018s or 332nds. Are you using 6010s, 6011s, 6013s, 7018s, 7024s? You know what I mean? There's many different kinds. In construction, though, I would say 7018s are God. 7018s, 6010s, you know what I'm saying? 8th inch 6010s, and 8th inch and 332nd 7018s. Those are in construction field from doing pipe and structural. Those are God in the field. So you always want to keep those in mind. And like I say, what type of welding jacket? Those are always a good thing. Some people ask me about that. If you're doing things overhead or uphill that requires a lot of sparks and stuff, I would recommend getting some leather sleeves or getting the RF jacket, where it's the RF here and it's the leather sleeves here. If you're not doing nothing that like TIG and not nothing that, or some flat MIG and there's not a lot of sparks or splatter, then you can get away with the regular jacket. You know what I mean? So to me, it all depends on what type of process of welding you're doing, or if you need a full leather jacket. I got both. I got a leather jacket, I got the apron, and I got the regular jacket. So I had someone say that they be grilling in the welding apron. You know what I mean? The apron is good. The welding apron is good if you're doing a lot of fabrication. Keep from messing up the front of your clothes. I like having certain gear, so I would recommend you get you an outfit or a jumpsuit or a certain gear that you wear when you're welding all the time. Normally you'll just grab a t-shirt, some jeans, that's fine. But if you can get you something that that apron or that that vest type thing that you can put on, that suit that's kind of like it's warm and it's pretty cool. So they got a pretty I think Dickie got one. A lot of different companies got those full body suits that you can work in. You see mechanics in them and stuff. They good to fabricate in, fam, and not mess up the clothes. So it all depends on what you're doing, if you're inside or outside. Now, like I say, these things are also for business. So if you dive into the business, surely if you depends on what you're doing, you have to have different units from a gas unit to a inside unit. So price is going to vary. You might be buying a used welder for gas unit, and you might be anywhere from you might can find one for 1,500, 2,000. I'm gonna say on the real, like right now, I'm seeing them 25 to 7,000, and these some used units, depends on what the unit is. So when you're looking at it from the field, the cost might be a little bit up, but those are ways to write down some of your consumables, because you need to know like what you're getting into and be realistic with yourself. Even when you're getting products, like you need to know on that aspect what type of metal and material you're going to be using, like how much tubing, how much angle iron, how much flat stock, how much round stock. Different things like that is going to help you grow and scale your business, because you got to know those things. Like I have dived into things thinking, oh, I got this great idea, right? And I'm gonna tell you about a project, so I'm gonna tell you a story. So I started a product that I started. It was a shooting target, and I was in Phoenix, Arizona. I was coming up with an idea to make the shooting target, where I figured out a way to make it, how to make it work, how to break it down, all this good stuff. And I got the material, and I got the AR plate, and I was getting samples, and I was doing all these things, and I kept prices of what everything cost me to make. And then as I got the product up and going, the pandemic hit, and man, I tell you, man, prices they it was 2020 when I left Phoenix. Prices had went up still like outrageous. So it was so expensive that for me to sell the shooting target at what I was selling it for with buying it, I would have had to sell it for double to even just make a barely a piece of a profit. So I couldn't do it due to the cost of the material. The product was easy, but the material went up so high, I couldn't do it due to the supply of the material. So I had to stop making that. And it was a good product. Like literally, I was trying to keep it affordable. I was trying to keep it, depends on the size. I wanted to have it under $150, and the least one was going to be around $75. You know what I mean? And I couldn't keep it in that price range, right, because of the material. And one of the main things that I needed was the AR plate, because when you're shooting, yeah, you can use regular steel, but it's something about having a right steel plate that really makes it last longer, and you get a better effect out of it. So that was a product that I came up with that I literally had to lay down because of not fully understanding the market at the time, you know what I mean, and not understanding the price of things, and I just couldn't make it make sense. So when you write, knowing how to write a consumable list can really help you on all levels as an individual, like I said, as a business, and if you're selling products. So I think that it's wise that we learn how to do these things uh, for ourselves, and also to help other individuals, because it's an asset. I think that we need to, lead by example, because this stuff is not taught in school. You're not going to learn this from your average channel. You know what I mean? People don't want to share they feel like it's a recipe. But to me, I think that we just have to be realistic. And once we start growing, then other people, I think we can share this information, and you're not afraid of no one getting the recipe, and you're not being able to use it to cook too. You'll still be able to cook, So I like to share the information, because I know that I'm allowing someone else to use it, and to mold themselves and get themselves in a position. And also, I also want to say that on my upcoming ebook, my goal is to be more specific with numbers, be more specific on how to do things, because I know that's what we need. We need to get straight to the source and not just beat around and make it all glamour and Hollywood. Everybody like to watch a movie every now and then. I do too. You know what I'm saying? But on life though, we need to be realistic and we need to know how to, you know, put things in perspective when we're growing and scaling our business, when we're trying to um, figure out what direction we want to go. So when you're writing your consumables, think of everything. Uh, Employees, if it's a big business, how many do you need? Do you need three? Do you need 10, 12? You know what I mean? So you have to keep everything in its proper perspective. And I think that those are things we we um, we overlook when we start growing our business. Also, I want to say a big thing that we overlook is location. We can be in an area where we have a great idea, but the location we're in will not allow you to do that. Like it's not big enough, it's not enough people, or the people there are not open enough to the idea. So you go somewhere else that's bigger. And normally, you know what I've noticed when you're growing things too? If you got a great idea and you go to a bigger place, you can be able to get the message out to a bigger audience. And then the same people that you wanted to help wherever area you was before you relocated, they are now looking at what you're doing on a bigger scale. So now it almost like it makes it easier for them to say, oh yeah, man, I'm gonna mess with it. But if you was right there with them, it probably wouldn't have been like that. I don't know. It's just ironic, but there's things that I've learned about marketing, about sales, about scaling your business. So I would say this as an entrepreneur, you're gonna have to learn, especially getting started. You need to understand everything about the business. You need to understand everything about do research about what you're diving into when it comes to welding, like the different fields, different processes. Get a big overall view of it. Don't just look at it from one standpoint because the field is so broad. So I think if you would start doing your research and ahead of time, it'll make things easier when you're making your decision on what direction you want to go in when it comes to business, when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to just having a good job and a good career. So I think that learning things like this can help you on plenty different aspects. But I want to say something that I seen um, earlier, and it was Steve Jobs actually, and he was talking about sales, marketing, and products. And he was talking about the person that develops the product, that develop the product. You'll work real hard for those who are fabricators, engineers. You'll come up with products, and then he said it's the sales team and the marketing team that gets that product to the shelf and actually build the company and scale it. And then it eventually is those who actually own the company, not really those who created the product. And those who sell it and market it don't fully understand the product. You know what I'm saying? They just concerned about the money. So when you starting something as an individual and you can learn how to do those things, you can keep yourself from being in a situation where you're not in control, or you can get yourself to a situation where you can build a brand, where you can sell the brand if that's what you want to do. A lot of people want to build something and then sell this and build something else so they can keep scaling because it's ideas. So all depends on what you're trying to do as a welder, as a fabricator, as a fitter, as a mobile welder, as a field welder. But I would say learn things like this. This can even help you when it comes to um, the manufacturing fabrication department, because you knowing how much material y'all using, what you going through, that can show that you have a lot of different other skills. And like I say, being a entrepreneur, I told you this channel is built upon not only teaching you how to weld, but giving you an entrepreneurial approach to it. So I want to show you a different angle of just doing it, because everybody's doing it from different angles. Some for jobs, like I say, or careers, others for business approaches and products and investment purposes. So like I say, welding isn't going nowhere, fam. But I think that it's wise to learn how to write y'all consumables down. learn out what you need, what you don't need. And when it comes to buying different equipment, tools, we all know there's a top brand and there's the bottom, and then you got the middle. The safe thing, if you can afford it, I would say just try to stay in the middle. Try to buy the best of what's in the middle, or what's at the top. Try to get it at the middle price to save you some money. I think that that's wise as well. There's always some crazy stuff going on. Well, y'all be blessed and continue to prosper, fam. I just wanted to go through and talk about that briefly, fam, because I think that there's some information that we could use. So I will most definitely recommend that we learn how to utilize, um, how to write down a list, and then you can start marking things off, and then you can start being realistic to see, man, okay, I can do this. Or you can give yourself a realistic goal. Okay, I can buy this at this time. I get this at this time. And that's what I did when I was starting out independently too. Before I let you go, as I was working a job, I'll buy this tool, then I'll buy this hood, or I'll buy this, and then they'll take money off my account and put towards the harness I bought or whatever I was purchasing. So I think that it's always good um, to use this type of information, family, to grow and scale yourself as an individual, as a company, as a brand, like all the way. So this rising fam, I just wanted to come through and give y'all some information, fam, that y'all can use, some tools you can use. You know what I mean? That way you can be able to plant some seeds to help yourself. And if you find this useful, fam, I appreciate you if you hit that like button. If you share it, tell someone about the channel. And like I say, my upcoming ebook is coming soon. I'll be letting y'all know more and more about it as it's in the making. So it's going to be $47, and in this ebook, fam, it's going to be life changing. You're going to be able to use this to grow yourself, your business, and your product, coming from an individual entrepreneur standpoint, and what I use personally, what I know works, because this is not a gimmick. When it comes to welding, when it comes to education, with knowing this, it's not a gimmick, fam. You can't make it up. You know what I mean? So I had to live this, experience this, and from my falls and from my mistakes, the goal is to keep you from having any. Salute, salute. Thanks for checking in. Want to make sure I lock these in. Good or bad, I appreciate everybody for checking in with me this rising. I know it's a little early, but hey, the early bird get the worm. You know what they say. So this rising, I just want to say, fam, write down your consumable list. I think that it's very wise to um, put some prices together and realistically see what it's going to take you to start your independence, as far as dive into school. If it's just, buying some personal PPE, always good to write it down, fam. It's always good to visualize, to see it, to write it, to read it out, to say it to yourself. That process helps you get over the hump, especially if you're trying to do anything. Writing it down, fam, actually gives you over a 50% chance of accomplishing it. So keep that in mind. Oh, fam, I'm gonna leave the video up, fam. I appreciate you for checking in. The video will stay up so you'll be able to go back and check this video out. The goal is literally just to give some ideas on how to write your welding consumable list, being realistic with yourself on your approach and what you need. I've seen people not start something just because they made too big of a list. Oh, I just got to get this tool, when they could have got this welder or that tool and still got the job done. So I think the best thing is to do is just write a list, be realistic with yourself on your approach, and hey, fam, get your hog on, fam. I really think everything gonna be all right. You just got to get started and know what you want, know what field you want to dive into. So if you're in high school and you're diving into this, know if you want to dive into the manufacturing field, the construction field. And when I say manufacturing, I mean making things, fabricating things inside of a shop. Construction goes anywhere from doing bridges, beams, columns, to pipe welding, pipeline, the whole construction as a whole. So there's money in both. But start doing research on where you want to go and what tools you need. Y'all be blessed. Continue to prosper. I'm out. Talk out.